G'day legends, I hope that you're having a great day. Now today's interview is with Dave. Now that is not his real name, but Dave is responsible for maybe the most Australian clip to come out of this war, and a clip that has gone viral. I can't show the video here, but I'll leave a link to it down below to see this amazing Australian battle cry. This video, as well as so much of my other stuff, is just getting restricted from YouTube. That's why this video has been up and down. So if you'd like to support me, there are links down below. Your creators on here who try and report on the truth and aren't just, you know, feeding into Silicon Valley's narrative as well, are just getting absolutely hounded. So if you really want to support your creators who do what I do, that is the best way to do it. Again, I'd like to thank you guys for being here and supporting the podcast. This is also available on Spotify under the same name as here, if that's the way you'd like to listen. But I'd like to thank Dave very much for coming on and sharing his story with me. Enjoy.
G'day.
Hey, mate. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Oh, I'm pretty well. This came up absolutely last minute, but I'm stoked to do it, man.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm hoping it's not fucking with any of your schedules or anything like that.
No, mate. To be honest, you've actually really helped me out because you've sort of cleared my schedule tomorrow. If I can record, film this all tonight, and then tomorrow I can just edit and get half the day off.
Well, there you go. You're welcome.
Fucking hell. How are you, man? You doing well?
Yeah, yeah. I'm doing all right. Fucking just taking it one day at a time. Really, that's all I can do, I suppose.
Awesome, man. Now, I've started recording, but we can just go from here if you like.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, so look, we're going to hide your identity, and we're just going to go as the most stock standard name ever, as Dave. Doesn't sound that as proficient as yourself is.
Nah, Dave's fine by me.
Well, you and I have actually been in touch from well before this war. When I looked back through our conversation on social media, it was actually you were following me from like when I was doing like chemotherapy like years ago.
Oh yeah, man. Like you're not exactly unknown within the military, that's for sure.
Yeah, that might not be a good thing. I don't fly under the radar, but like, yeah, sorry, I was like, oh fucking hell, like, yeah, it's a small world, man.
Yeah, bloody oath. I was ex-military anyway, so like, always had mates with you and whatnot, and I was just sort of following your journey, man. I'm just glad you're still with us, mate.
Mate, I'm fucking glad I'm here too. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking shit with yourself. So when did your military journey, like pre-Ukraine, when did that start? And can you tell us about some of your experience there?
Yeah, so I enlisted in 2015 into the army, and I spent about 7 years in the infantry, in the army as a whole, in the infantry. I was over in 3 RAR as well, all up until last year where I discharged.
Awesome. And did you discharge specifically to go to Ukraine?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, shit.
Saw the war kicked off, and being in the military as well, you sort of hoping to go do your job, but never really happened. And I saw, once this happened, I sort of took that whole year to prepare my life for back home, sort out my things, and then come here, really.
Yeah. And what did your mates in the military think of that?
I kept it pretty like down low. I told my good mates there, portion of my family at the time, and they were supportive, man. They'll help me out, fucking give me kit that I needed, would train me on weapon systems I was expecting or thought I would be using over here. Like, they were bloody sports about it. I didn't tell like any of my chain of command or anyone who I thought would sort of hinder the process, because at the time I wasn't sure on Australia's laws and if I was going to be fucking arrested or just prevented or stalled from coming over here. So I kept it as down low as I could, but also not so much to keep my mates in the loop. So I wanted them to know what I'm doing, and sort of not have them fucking lose contact with me, then just fucking over the news some dead Aussies over in Eastern Europe.
Oh, mate, that's like everything, isn't it? Keep your chain of command out of the loop and keep you and the boys in it.
Yeah, fucking know. That's what it's all about.
It's drinking beers or going to Ukraine. It's all the same deal, isn't it?
Pardon? Sorry, the internet's
Sorry.
quite shoddy. You might break out every now and then.
No, you're right. I said if it's either drinking beers or going to Ukraine, training command out of the loop
Yes.
and the boys in it.
Mate, there's one or the other. There's no in between.
Oh, fucking A. Well, Aussie, mate, it's full tilt, full time, isn't it?
Always.
I haven't heard or said that for a while. So what was it about that over the last year that you saw when you were like, yeah, fuck this, I'm going to pull the pin on a career here and I'm going to go and help out? What was there any defining moments that got you?
Like spending so long in the military, or so long for me at least. I was a full track for about three years by the time I discharged, and you just get sort of sick of the little things as well. It's the little things that add up in the military. We both know that sort of get to you eventually, and I was starting to as well before I made the decision. The war in Ukraine sort of just kicked me in the ass and gave me a actual solid path to go to, and I was sort of growing this disdain for the military and starting to hate it, like most people sort of do at the end of their contract or the end of their career. And I love the military. I love the infantry, and I didn't want to hate it. So I was already sort of looking for a way out, but I had revolved my life around the military and wanting to be there for so long. So I was kind of in a bit of a crisis, trying to decide what I want to do. Like for 90% of grunts, it's like go to the cops or maybe go to the mines or something. But I just didn't. It just didn't still feel right. It's not something I could do, but not something I necessarily wanted to do. And and when the war kicked off, and then they were asking for volunteers, I just sort of had a bit of a think to myself and thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. I actually know now, without a shadow of a doubt, that I want to come here and do it. So I started the process, and I just came here. I initially was going to leave, go AWOL at the start, because I was like, oh shit, it's all happening. But I came to my senses and realized, hey, don't be a fucking idiot. I want to come back to Australia one day, not be arrested. So I sorted all my admin, made sure that I left on the sort of most appropriate note possible, and then I left and came here.
Yeah, I think you bring up some very interesting bits in that a lot of guys from any military around the world can, I guess, relate to. That you and I got in about the same time into that military, that mid sort of 2010s when Afghan ended, or the real combat tours ended in 12 or 14, and we sort of entered peacetime army. And you do that, you would have done 7 years, but those 3 years is a full track. And there's a full track, sorry for anyone listening, is a corporal. So you're in charge of 7 other soldiers and your own little section. And you're sort of like, it's like training for football, but just sitting on the bench, I guess, when the game comes around.
Yeah, exactly right.
But that's the period. I got out at maybe 6.5 or 7 years, whatever it was. And a lot of guys tend to get that sort of cold feet, I guess, at that time of like, hey, is this going to be my career, or what are my other choices? Like you and I as grunts, like, what the fuck do we do? Do we go work some shitty security job or mines? It's good money in the mines, but is it going to really tickle that sense? Do you go private contracting? There's not as much as there used to be. So I think you bring up a lot that people will really relate to, but I'm very glad you got out correctly, because that AWOL's not what you want to come home to.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. No, I didn't want to go. Yeah, because I've got family back home, and I would love to see them again. And doing that from behind a glass wall in a prison through a phone or however it is isn't the ideal way to do it, I believe.
No. And well, it would have made the podcast a lot better. The title, like AWOL Soldier Fights in Ukraine, would be significantly better. So you've gone jack on myself, but
Sorry, mate, I had to do it.
no, you're fucking right. So what was your have you been to like Eastern Europe before?
No. So I've been to I've done the old
Did you just drag on a
RCB
vape?
tours. Oh, pardon?
Did you just drag on a vape?
Oh yeah.
I could hear it. I could hear it.
Be happy.
Are they
I don't smoke.
Fuck, are they the Ukrainian elf bars? Is that what everyone has over there?
About 90% of people do. I've got a Val at the moment, a banana ice. It's not too bad, I'll be honest.
Fuck yeah. Well, if soldiering doesn't kill you, mate, that that will in the future.
Mate, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Hey,
I think.
Fair. Sorry to cut you off. So you'd been to somewhere before? Sorry.
Yeah, the old RCBs, mate. Did a couple of those fucking in my time.
Yep.
So that was like within the military. That was it. I've been to like Japan on like Christmas Eve and whatnot, but this was my first time in actual proper Europe. I flew into Switzerland to link up with a mate of mine, and he bloody road tripped me through Italy and then straight east all the way through like Serbia, and then my destination was Bulgaria, because at the time I was slated to go in with a training team, train, advise and assist, and that was led by some bloody British bloke. And he had a team of like 6 or 7 other foreigners, because I was originally going to join Mozart Group. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Yeah, I have, but can you just explain it to the listeners what exactly that is?
Okay, so Mozart Group, when it was a thing, was sort of this training, training and supply organization, and they had this sort of element that nobody really talked about, which was a direct sort of competitor, I guess you could call it, to Wagner Group, and they weren't advertised within their company at all, but they were there to sort of train the Ukrainians and then deploy and fight with them, and that was what I was trying to go off and do, right? Yeah. And since then, Andy Milburn, Noise Glory, he, sort of ran the company into the ground essentially, and it just went bust. And from there, once I got to Bulgaria, I got told by that bloke there, hey, Mozart Group's no longer a thing, but we're still doing this train advice assist role because we still have supporters and donors, so you're still got the green to do that. So I'm like, yeah, okay, sweet, that's count my blessings. So went to Bulgaria, did some, they called it pre-deployment prep, but all it was really was to show my competence with an AK and a Glock. And the only time I ever fired an AK before was never. And in my infinite wisdom and all the video games I played, it wasn't hard to just pick up one and shoot it. So they were simply built weapons. So simpleton like me could fucking definitely use one. And then I caught a bus to Kyiv from Bulgaria, and that was a journey in itself, because I had all this military kit with me, and I had no issues until I got to the Moldovan border, where it was just a strip of land from Romania through Moldova to Ukraine. It's like 200 meters maybe. I could see the next border crossing from there. And the bloody Moldovan stopped me, pulled me off the bus. This is in the middle of winter as well. Exploded all my gear and told me, hey, no one on this bus is allowed to come through this checkpoint now because of this gear. You have to go back. And I'm thinking, shit, righto. I've sort of put myself in a bit of a pickle here. And apparently for the bus company, if one person sort of causes dramas for them, they're told just to leave them somewhere and continue forward. But thankfully, I had this lovely lady who's with an NGO called Project Hope on the bus with me, and she spoke very good English, and she sort of convinced the bus drivers, hey, don't do that. But as well as what I think helped was, I had all my kit exploded on the search table. Sorry, 1 minute. Sorry, 1 minute, mate.
You're right, mate.
I'll take whoever needs to go. It's fine. Yeah. Sorry, mate.
Oh, you good? You good?
I'm in the chow hall right now. Please excuse any interruptions.
That's all good.
Yeah, all my gear exploded. I think like the people on the bus were just looking at what the fuck was going on, and I think that they put sort of two and two together. Hey, this foreigner is over here with his military gear going to Ukraine. He's probably coming here to volunteer and fight. So the lady with the NGO said that two or three people are upset, but everyone else understands. So we had to the bus turned around. We caught these two ferries across this river, and then we entered Ukraine. What was meant to be a 32-hour bus ride turned into like 40-something hours just because we had a lot of waiting as well. So I was pretty stressed during that journey as well because I still had my Telstra SIM card. I wasn't going to get one until I got to Ukraine. I got a Ukrainian one until I got into country, and my internet was like on roaming the whole time, and it was cutting in and out every time I entered into across a border. It'd have to change the roaming countries, and just at that point in Moldova, like at the Moldovan border, it had stopped working. So I thought, if I get dropped off here, I've got to essentially go into hardcore survival mode and just survive the cold. And I had this big black roller bag, my pack, and this third backpack as well. So it wasn't a light trip for whatever trek I was going to have to make. But thank God, it sort of went in my favor.
Fucking oath.
Sorry, I got up in a bit of a tangent there. Sorry.
No, mate. No, that's completely fine. Trust me, I'm the fucking king of tangents. So once you entered, did you go into that train advisor assist role? Now that group had somewhat been dismantled.
So I got into Kyiv. I started looking for an apartment sort of straight away because I had all this gear that I needed a place to store it all. And my first priority was to find that apartment. I did, stored my stuff there. Then I think I was in Kyiv for maybe about a week until I met up with the blokes, and then we road trips down to Dnipro, and then linked up with I think a Ukrainian sort of recruit base it was somewhere there, and then we sort of started the long process of trying to get contracts, and that was probably one of the most that's when I learned that things do not move smoothly in Ukraine when it comes to paperwork, and that's putting it very lightly. We were waiting. I think I was with that training team for maybe I got to Ukraine February 23rd, and I think I was with the training team for like a month and a bit.
Oh.
And we did some training of the Ukis on the base. We traveled further east at one point and trained some a TDF battalion as well. But that whole time we're under the promise from contracts, like, they're coming, we're getting them. I wasn't being paid this whole time. The bloke running the team was like, yeah, pay's coming, I'm trying. And it was meant to be like something godlike, like 12 to 15,000 USD a month. And I was like, well, shit, I'll stay for the ride if I have to. You've twisted my arm. And everything just sort of eventually fell apart because it wasn't even us in the team who decided to leave. It was the team leader and one of his mates sort of just like, hey, we're going to go to 1st Battalion of the International Legion. You guys can come if you want. We're just like, all right, sure. I don't really want to do that, so I'm just not going to go with you. Because at the time, 1st Battalion of the Legion, like, they didn't do what I wanted to do. They just pretty much sat in trenches in OPs, taking artillery, and the team lead got this offer because to go to some recon company, but we had an interview. I used interview loosely with the recon platoon commander at the time, and it was in a car park of some supermarket, and didn't really give the very good impressions, and we were just sort of met with lies and empty promises of, hey, you'll get this, blah blah blah, and we sort of, the rest of the group sort of saw past that and didn't really want to have a bar of it. So those of us who didn't go with the blokes that went to it chilled in Dnipro in these houses that these Ukrainian volunteers to helped us with. So we decided what to do, and eventually an offer for the 2nd Battalion of the International Legion came up. So that was my next sort of approach, and I went there just with 2 of us. And then I spent a bit of time there, but like my military, it was a lot of training, but not a lot of doing the job. And I was there for maybe I think 2 months, and then I left that. And then a big group of us left that, and then I'm now part of a Ukrainian unit under a company named Chosen Company, and that's where I am now.
Right, and what's the difference with where you are now?
Well, we're actually doing exactly what I want. We're an assault company attached to this Ukrainian unit, and we go out on ops, whether it's attacking trenches or attacking urban complexes or villages or whatnot. This is direct action stuff. Like, it's exactly to a T of what I wanted to do in the army when I was enlisted. So I'm actually doing what I came here to do, and it's the best shit I could ever fucking hope for. I'm with like boys that I love dearly and couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else. So it's what I want, and that's what I care about.
Fucking oath. And can you sort of run us through when you first were sort of, I guess, baptized by fire in that unit? Like, when did you first really get in the shit? And could you talk us through that?
Oh, so it was I think I've been with these guys for just over a month now. My first op was providing, so it was, our ops for a while have been sort of quite mixed. I'm a team lead now, I guess, a SECO, and at the time, we would be switching. The teams would be quite small. We wouldn't involve the whole company in these like tasks, because it was too large of a footprint to add to those Ukrainian positions, and it was just really no sort of need. So every op we've done, I've been a part of so far. So that first one, it was a small team, 2 teams of about 5 each. And our task was to provide flank security for a Yuki assault on a Russian position. And in that one, we got infilled into the position, waited there overnight, and essentially provided the security for that assault for the Yukis. And I wasn't really necessarily shot at, but we took a lot of IDF as well in that time. And then once the assault was done, we would exfil and get taken back to our base. So that was my first combat experience, but it wasn't quite, fucking seeing anyone, shooting anyone. It was just sort of being there to make sure that the Russians, if they were going to, play silly buggers and try and hit them from the sides or something, we'd be there to stop that and kill them before they did.
Yeah. And when was it where you first got in that, like a contact, shootout with the Russians?
God, well, so to this date, I still have not seen a live Russian soldier.
Right.
It's true when they say, you rarely see the enemy. I thought it would be easier than that, but it's just not. They're concealed. The positions we hit, mostly Russians in defense, so they're already dug in, or have built up defenses in whatever buildings they're in, and you rarely see the actual people firing. You're always taking cover from IDF or from the PKM down the road, so it's hard to put yourself in a sort of position where before maneuvering up close enough to actually see who you're firing at. So I've fired at plenty of things I've thought Russians would be and where they would go, and I've provided suppressive fire and covering fire, but I still have not seen a live Russian. I've seen plenty of dead ones, but no living, breathing bloke so far.
And when you say you've seen, plenty of dead guys, how do you feel towards the Russian soldiers? Like, is there is it when they're a living, breathing human that it's like that's the enemy, whatever, and when you, walk past death, it's like, well, the threat has been neutralized and I have some level of empathy for just a human. How do you feel about that as a warrior in, your situation?
So it's hard for me to feel this, hate towards the Russians like the Ukrainians do, understandably. It's not my homeland being invaded. It's not my family being indiscriminately bombed despite being, hundreds of kilometers from the front line, having nothing to do with the conflict. So it's hard for me to, hate these guys. And I sort of, you hear all the stories of like, and all these war crimes from the Russian soldiers, but it still hasn't, I guess, consumed me in a sense. Like, I'll happily see one, shoot one, given the opportunity when it comes. But how do I explain this? I have respect for them in the sense that, I'm a soldier and they're a soldier as well. And, they're just doing the exact same thing I am, whether it's on the, enemy, whether the bad guys or not. I just see it as a soldier's a soldier. Like, I don't, when I walk by a dead body, I honestly don't really think of anything except that they smell bad because the bodies have been there for quite a little bit of time. But I don't know, there's nothing for me to really think when I see these bodies because they're just blokes who's, I guess, tried to fight and died doing it, which is everywhere here. I guess I hope that answers your question. Sorry, it's hard to put into words, I suppose, but I guess it's just respect I have, despite all the bad things you hear. I'm still not inclined to commit any war crimes and execute prisoners. It's just not who I am, really. And I carried a lot of values over from the Australian Army over to here, which I'm personally proud of. I don't want to sort of lose myself in a way, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's when, like you said, I think people can lose themselves in that, and that's when you really start having some problems.
Yeah.
You speak, and I think you articulated that very well. Sort of warriors being warriors, and on the other side of, a war. And I've said to people that guys like you and I, if we were born somewhere in Russia and this was happening and we've had the propaganda fed to us and blah, 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 whatever, guys like you and I, probably, particularly yourself, I'm not in the military anymore, but would probably be in the bloody little green man uniform as well. Like there's a lot of that. I was with a guy only on the weekend. I won't say his name on here, but you and I both know him. Who was like, man, if you and I were born in Afghan, we're the sort of guys that would also be in the Taliban. And I was like, fuck. When you think of it like that, you're like, oh shit, there is a level of like geography, if that makes sense. Like, we, of course, doing the wrong thing, and we've seen a lot of that, is personal choice. But yeah, it's hard to articulate that, I think. But I think you did really well, better than I.
No, you did right. If I was born Russian, I would be in the Russian military without a shadow of a doubt. It's just the combat and the combat and doing this sort of thing is what I want. So it's obviously no disrespect to Ukrainians at all. I'm happy this is where I want to be. I want to fight with these guys and help them, because although I want to be here, although I did come here to get the combat and get the experience as well, it's also another blessing to be able to help these people, because despite all the the reports of corruption and right-wing fanatics here, like I just don't see it here as well. Like, these are people, soldiers who are just fighting, trying to push this invader out of their bloody homeland because Putin thinks they're all Nazis and declared this special operation that he thinks is just. Like, just, I just want them to fuck off. And at the same time, I get to get the experience that I've desired for the past 7 years of my career.
Yeah. And you mentioned in that, war crimes of going through the trench systems, like the Russian systems, and, you hear the stories of some terrible crimes, and I'll go further and say crimes against humanity.
Yep.
Have you seen much evidence of that in your experience?
No, I haven't. As far as I'm aware, what I've seen, I haven't seen any of that in my time over here, at least. Like my time, I didn't get to I guess the front line until I got with chosen company, as it was. But since being here, I haven't seen any evidence of that. I haven't come against Wagner yet. It's just been like DPR, Russian Marines as well. As far as I know, no Wagner that I've seen, which are, who are horrendous for the war crimes as well. Of course, other Russian units are too, but since being here, I haven't seen it myself. But there's plenty of blokes who I'm with who have seen that shit, unfortunately.
Yeah. And what about on the Ukrainian side? It's not beyond me that we do see videos too of executions of prisoners and some things that I guess make your skin crawl. Have you had any experience with some of that, as coming from a very professional military like the Australian Army, that you really think, oh fuck, this isn't the right thing to be doing?
No, I haven't seen any of that stuff. I haven't experienced anything from Ukrainians that have made me thought, oh, like, should I really be here? Same with like my experience with the Russians. I haven't seen any of it from the UK side of it as well, which is good.
No, that is good. And how do you make of, you and I both know that militaries and they attract some pretty fucking oddball dudes, and you and I probably both know from our service guys who you'd be like, you're a fucking skinhead just with a different haircut. That exists everywhere. But of course, this is more prevalent in Ukraine, as we know. The Australian Army doesn't have units that are based on ideology, except maybe like CISB on not being as good as the infantry, but we got to stab the truck drivers and support where we can. But how do you make of that?
So of the foreigners here with that sort of
or actually,
ideology?
Probably of both. Of the ideology itself, where you've got these like sort of ultra nationalist units, but also there are definitely, I believe, and you can probably speak on this more, foreigners who do go across because they align more with that ideology there as well.
I do have, not even a handful of mates. Probably don't even think I count on one hand, maybe two at most, that I know for a fact have that sort of ideology, that have come over here. Not mates as in Australians, but just foreigner mates in general. But I've never really, it's different to, like, people on the internet will scream Nazi at people who disagree slightly with something they're saying, and there's a lot of like, oh, it's everywhere. But when I've never, it's hard to explain my opinions on that sort of stuff. I just honestly just don't really care. It's all, a lot of it to me is just political dog shit, and I just sort of don't worry about it at all, because it's not something I've even had to deal with here. And I've always just sort of laughed at, oh, people are Nazis, people are communists, or blah blah blah. It honestly just isn't really of a concern to me, and I try to keep it out of my mind, whether that's a good or bad thing. But I know people are more politically inclined than most, but mate, I'm not brave enough for politics, so I've never really actually cared too much, I guess, if that answers your question. Sorry, you might have to, I hope I answered that question. I'm not sure if I did.
No, mate, you did. It's just interesting to hear about, because I think everyone has a somewhat unique experience in Ukraine with this. And a lot of the units have definitely had a level of like maturity as well. And maturity might not be the right word, but maybe evolve over time. Because as people will say, the Azov of what was in the earlier years and maybe at the beginning of the war is not the Azov that we see now, and other units similarly to that. And, it's a big country. It's fucking 250,000 people fighting. The people just have different experiences everywhere, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, a good way of expressing how I feel is I would happily fight with Azov because they're all bloody good fighters, despite what you know their political ideologies were or are still somewhat insided. Because you probably can never get rid of those sort of people from a unit that has that history. But if I ever got the offer before coming here to fight with Azov, I would have done it happily just because I know they did the sort of things I wanted to in terms of combat and direct action stuff. So like that's how little I care about all these people screaming Nazi and right wing and it because it just doesn't matter to me here on the front line. I don't give a fuck what's the skin color of a dude is or what he believes, as
Yeah.
long as he saves me when I'm injured or fights beside me. I don't. I just don't care.
Yeah, and I guess that comes down to a little bit of there's no atheists in a foxhole. That it's
Oh
we're
look,
just the boys doing
I
it.
haven't prayed to God once while getting shelled, so I'll be the first.
Yeah, mate, just try some other denominations, just in case you're wrong. Just reel them off. God Allah, just in case. Just bet all your chips in.
Mate, the army taught us box reading. That works just fine.
Yeah, fuck, man. And so I know I have to ask some sort of some pushy questions because I need to sort of push on some things.
Yeah.
In the Legion, I have a lot of friends who have been in and out of the Legion, currently there and not, and you do hear some very mixed reports, and like we've spoken about some other stuff, it's very mixed on how it goes. How's your experience been with, I guess, the treatment of soldiers, the pay, as well as like getting paid or not, as well as just any of the overall corruption? Because you do hear some very concerning bits, and me being back here, not in the Legion, it's hard to get a picture of exactly what it's like because I'm hearing so much conflicting reports.
Oh, so the Legion. So I was part of the 2nd Battalion. So you have like 1, 2, and 3 battalion. Then you have 4, which is I think the training sort of battalion, right? I was part of 2nd Battalion. A lot of the dudes I'm with were part of that as well, and my time there it just wasn't really good. The chain of command, although foreigners up until up to company level was foreigners, and then above that was Ukrainians. It was for the most part pretty dog shit, man. Like I was surprised of how much of a correlation there was between the Australian Army and the Legion here in terms of political correctness, doing just dumb shit for the sake of doing dumb shit, pandering to the higher ups. It just reminded me too much of the Australian Army in that sense, and I just fucking, like a lot of us, we just sort of degraded into, I guess, madness and sort of Lord of the Flies, if you will. And getting clarification on things like pay. Pay is a fucking big one over here. I don't know what it is, but I think it's just paperwork in general. It would just be, we would get paid, but we would have to hassle people constantly for like, is this the right amount of pay? Like, what are our benefits? Like, what happens in injury? We did eventually get clarification, but that was after, pushing and pushing and pushing to get this information told to us. The blokes in the 2nd Battalion that I were with are currently deployed, and they're having a issue with their chain of command as well in terms of stealing pay right now. So that's I'm shocked, but I'm not really surprised at that as well. So the Legion has been a bit of a funny spot, I think, for a few months now, and every day it's looking less and less appealing. I think, especially for those who have been here and are in the know of it all. Looking from the outside in, of course, you see the International Legion on social media posting and all the goodies like every army does. They always post the good, not the bad. But there is an inherent what do I call it? It's an inherent film of corruption in there that that just shouldn't be, but it fucking is, unfortunately, and it really degrades morale more than anything, because you want to be able to trust your chain of command here, especially in an actual fucking war zone where you can go fight and may die or get injured, and doing it under a unit such as the 2nd Battalion isn't a place where I'd ever want to go back to.
Yeah, it seems like a common theme. People not getting paid, stealing pay. I hear a lot of horror stories about guys winding up dead. Missions, people put on missions who might not want to participate, things like this. Of course, I can only confirm that to people's word, but it does seem like a common theme through some of those units.
Yeah, it is. That sort of stuff is prevalent, but the one thing we sort of have to our advantage is that we can just leave whenever the fuck we want.
Yep.
We can just say, no, I'm not doing that. And, they kick us out of a unit. Cool. At least I'll fight to die another day somewhere. I'm happy to. And that's one thing I can say is probably a big factor for foreigners here, is that, we can just cancel contract and leave, or refuse to go on a mission if we deem appropriate. Really, that's probably the saving grace, I would say, for me, and probably a lot of foreigners over here as well, because you're not going to go to prison or get arrested or something like that. At least it's recognized that, hey, we've come here to do this job, and although we complain like soldiers do, we still want to get there and do this shit. So if we're not being treated right, then we just won't fucking do it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair enough. It completely makes sense. Have you had much of a run-in? I know at least very early in this conflict, the most prevalent thing that I saw of bloody Westerners in Ukraine was me and those guys referred to them as the fictional characters, but these wannabe fucking warriors, these James Vasquez types that get around all the multicam but have never run a mile in their life and have fucking no idea. Is there still a lot of that? Are these who the fuck is this guy just here to take some Instagram photos and flog off?
Oh, mate, as soon as until this war's done, they're going to be here in droves. They will never leave. There'll always be people to replace them. You cut off the head of one snake and 3 more pop up. It'll be here until this war's done, and probably afterwards as well. You get these fucking LARPers, I guess is the best word for it.
It is.
Roll around the main, even Lviv, in plate carriers and go to fucking pubs and tell these stories that either other people's stories or stories they've just made up, and just to get a buck. A lot of people over here, foreigners, unfortunately, to scam people just to gain money. It's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. Luckily, with my guys, or at least it's not here, but the amount of times I've heard, special forces sniper, ex-Navy SEAL, some fucking dumb crap like that. You just have a laugh every time you fucking hear it now.
Yeah. No, I've had plenty of that, man. I've got up for an interview somewhere and this guy's been like, yeah, I was this, I was that. And I had one guy, I did a Freedom of Information Act through a friend from the States, and it came out this guy had done 3 weeks at basic in the Navy. And he was telling me he was in 2 and 4 SEAL teams, did all this shit. And I was just and as soon as I saw him, and you're the same, you can be like, this guy doesn't, you're just this doesn't seem like a hitter. What the fuck? But yeah, there's a lot of it, but there's so much money, man. God, I've heard, I don't want to make any allegations, but I've heard James Vasquez had $1 million. It's insane, man.
Mate, oh God.
But it is if you were just a normal civvy, you don't know what you're looking for. You and I could look at an image and go, that guy, say James, first thing I notice, his magazines are in upside down. And you're just what the fuck is that? The bullets at the top. You're what? But you don't see that. And these people have a few 100,000 followers. They're wanting to do the right thing. And they're like, I'll donate $1,000. And it's just, and there's so much of these dudes, man. And these guys just disappear off the radar at some point. And they're there. I know so many guys who I had met who were just there for sex tourism in Kyiv or Lviv. It's just, fuck, man, these just wannabes. It's fucked.
Yeah, it's unfortunately war sells, and once people realize you can make money off of it, they'll come in droves, and that's what they do. Just come here to make money and sort of, I guess, gain fame that way. Is pretty much what I've seen. It's all about the fame and the money.
Well, war is the most lucrative business that exists for everyone. For guys like in the defense industries, media. This war saved mainstream media as Trump got kicked out of power. They got saved then by the Rona, and then as Rona ended, Putin saved the mainstream media. All the guys that the mainstream hate has actually saved them, because if they didn't have that, what would they be reporting on?
Exactly.
But it's always the scumbags making a buck off the war, and I'll include myself in this as well. But at least I've done a lot of time in the country and whatever.
Of course.
And the people who deserve it, the soldiers, those wounded, the families who have lost everything, they get fucking nothing. Sadly, war is just like that, man. But it's fucking unfair when you've sort of peeled back the curtain, isn't it?
It's terrible. It's just the unfortunate reality of it all, I suppose. And it's never stuff like that's gonna be around until fucking we go extinct, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of it all.
Well, we'll extinct ourselves. Well, you're sort of on the forefront of this war, at least where you're operating. How do you see that the counteroffensive is going? If you could speak on that a bit.
So at the beginning, when the second counteroffensive was announced, I was always expecting it to be this sort of blitzkrieg like that first one was, but this one is more so a slow push. The ground is being taken in a more direct way than it was before, but it's slowly moving forward in some areas, and obviously they're having better luck in some than others, but it is pushing forward, but it is a grind, which isn't a surprise. It's just how it's going so far. It's just that slow push and gaining ground, small bits of ground with each sort of operation.
And do you think, I know this is well beyond your and I pay grade, but do you think that is the best way to fight this, or that blitzkrieg? Because I'm in your boat. That's what I thought we would see, because I don't think personally, and I'm fucking limited in my sort of IMAP military planning, but the grinding method is what you don't want to do against an enemy like Russia, who is willing to just throw men and equipment into peril. That isn't your tactic. You need to break through and outmaneuver the enemy. Do you see that we're just waiting for a breakthrough to break through that first line somewhere before we do more maneuver ops, or is the capability there to participate in large-scale maneuver operations?
I don't think the capability is quite there until we get more of those Western vehicles, such as the Abrams. You would have seen the that assault down in the southern front, the Zaporizhia, of the Leopards and the Bradleys, and they unfortunately got smoked. But I think that was due to very, very poor planning on the Ukrainians' part there. I think how it's going to look is it's going to be probably small probing assaults with this Western equipment until they can identify a suitable avenue of approach to then commit large force to. That's what I would predict would be the course of action for them. But whether they do that or not, I have no idea. They might just plan to continue this sort of way they're doing it now, the slow grind, or they may just be waiting for, a key decisive event to sort of push through and hit them hard. But only time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And how long are you planning on being in Ukraine until?
I'd like to be here until the war's over, really, or until Australia goes to war with China. Either one. If that happens, I'll jump ship over and fight with my boys. But I would like to be here till it ends, or until I make it to a point where I just don't want to do it anymore. But right now, I want to stay and fight for the long haul till it's over.
Yeah. Have you seen? There's a meme from The Hangover where they're in like some shit box, like we're fucking back, baby, we're back, And there's been memes floating around like me and the boys in the RAR when Australia goes to war with China. It's just all the boys back together, mate. If that would be the only good thing to come out of a war of China for that short period of time before we get smoked, it'd be the best time ever, like reunion with all the boys.
Oh, mate, it'd be what dreams are made of.
All be unfit as fuck, but would be good.
Yeah.
And
it'd be a wild ride, I'd tell you that.
Oh, yeah, fucking absolutely. You know, you yourself, you know, in these sort of storm units going through defensive works, what do you make of the defensive build-up that you've seen? Like, you know, as a SECO, as both of us who have done SIOS, which is a corporal's course in the military, know we dig in on that course for fucking 2 weeks, whatever it is, and build up defensive positions. What do you make of the positions? Are they decent? Are they well made, or is it a bit here and there?
The ones I've come up against so far have been nothing to really write home about. But, you know, further along, deeper into the Russian territory, we see a lot of well-built fortifications, kilometres long of trench line, dragon's teeth, obstacles. So they do have that. Obviously, there is capability in the means, but it's, from what in my area at least, it's far deeper into the Russian territory that they've got that. But the ones I've come up against really, you know, are just positions that have been battered for, you know, months and months and months, and they haven't had time to, the ability to bring up and, you know, refortify and repair these spots. So if they were in good repair, then they've since then been hit with enough IDF to, you know, not so much provide no protection, but to, you know, degrade the quality of the positions.
Yeah, to soften it up to, I guess, assault from there.
Yeah.
And what is it you think is having the biggest effect, at least in your AO? Is it the artillery, the drones? Is there anything that really surprised you about this conflict?
I think for us, it's especially against the DPR and the Russian penal battalions, it's our ability to actually push and maneuver, because they're not used to it. They're used to just holding the line, exchanging fire and probing for artillery. But once they get hit and see that, oh, we've got fucking 3 Humvees rolling up on us with a bunch of crazy cunts in the back, they run. They some of the units just get up and fucking run and leave their dead.
Yeah.
So they're just not used to those like hard hitting, you know, tactics of just getting absolutely swamped with dudes to take that position.
Well, but as we know, those sort of maneuvers are much more advanced warfare, and that's the benefit a well-trained army has, is they can actually do, like, you know what it's like when you at Kapuka, like our basic training, you're doing those sort of up the guts assault, you know, exchange of fire, and then as you become a more and more competent soldier, you start into that maneuver style warfare at is 3RAR your Bushmasters mobilized?
No, bloody the good old M113s, mate.
Oh, so you're mechanised as well. Oh, fuck. 7's mech as well. I must be thinking of someone else. But you know what it's like. You start off, you know, mech shit assault, and then you're doing legitimate manoeuvre assault. And if you don't know what's happening, next thing you're getting flanked and it's up your ass. Like, yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah, like one of the assaults I did, we hit them from the rear. So we actually swung around and hit them from behind their trench, and, you know, they've got no fucking firing positions back there, and we just fucking swamped into one of the entrances and cleared the position. So like just small things like that is the being able to, you know, hit them from an angle which they just don't expect or think we'd be too crazy to do, and then they're just like, oh shit, well, what the fuck do we do?
Yeah. And there's a video of you that's gone somewhat viral. Can you talk about that assault? Because that's going to be the opening to this. I'm going to promote this podcast as well, because it is the single most fucking Aussie thing in the world.
Mate, I don't know if you've seen the comments on the videos, but people can't decide whether I'm Australian, Kiwi, British, American. I'm every nationality you can think of, mate.
I don't know how. Like, I've seen people being like, "Oh, he's American." I'm like, what? Like, if you say the C word to an American, they almost bloody drop dead, and it's like the thickest Aussie accent in the world. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys on about?
Yeah, I know. Trust me, it's been a good laugh to see it all and people arguing about it. It's good for my morale, I
It's
suppose.
brilliant. It's brilliant, mate. Can you tell us about that assault?
Uh, yeah. So that was the assault I just mentioned. We hit him. We approached him from the side and swung around to the rear, and we had the Humvees with the 50s, and we were on the back of a transport one, and we dismounted and infilled into the trench system and cleared it. And bloody, there was no Russians in there. They had left as we pulled up. There were a couple of dead, but unfortunately there were no. Well, I guess fortunately for us, there was no hard resistance there to go up against. So we all came out of that okay. But yeah, we sort of just got in there, cleared the trench, held it, and then got relieved a few hours later by the TDF.
Right. And I guess, where do you see this war, and really yourself, where do you see this in the next couple of weeks for yourself? Is it more ops? Is it, I know you can't give anything away, but.
Yeah, it's usually like every, I probably can't give that information, but it'll just be more of that same stuff really in the future. This is how the tempo is quite, it's not stale, but like, we do enough.
Yep. And how has the casualties been on the Ukrainian side?
They do take quite, I guess, relatively heavy casualties at times, but it's just all from IDF. It's just people rarely get shot. It's just all bloody mortars and artillery and drones, even just seeing them drop bombs from like 30, 40 meters up in the air. It's just a lot of what the casualties are from, but it is every op will yield some casualties in one way or another.
Yeah. And how's the Medevac for that?
So it's not to the, obviously we have the golden hour back in the Afghan days of, you're injured and you're pretty well guaranteed to get out of there within that hour. But over here it's a lot of, self-care and having these medic guys, or CLSs as we call them, which are equivalent to CFAs, in these teams is pretty much the difference between life or death. We train on TCCC as best we can, but we need these sort of medics to help administer drugs and that further care in the field, while we can wait for the opportune moment to, bring in Medevac or more likely take them to the casualty collection point to actually get Medevaced. But it's, Medevac here is, hit and miss, because it all depends on the enemy, whether they're taking artillery fire and if it's safe enough for them actually to get up to a relatively close position to get our blokes out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people I speak to, I think, have this somewhat opinion. You can speak more to this than I, but is they sort of come expecting the same standard as a Western military. Like, this isn't the Australian or the British or the Yanks. This isn't that. Nor is this Afghan war. This is a legitimate near-peer conventional conflict in an Eastern European country with a lot of issues in it as well. You've joined this conflict. It didn't join you. Like, you can fuck off if you're not happy with it, but you can't expect rose petals on the fucking bed as you lie down every night.
No, exactly. Like, it's one thing I did make sure I knew coming over here and, like, accepted, was that the, whole, Casevac and, the chance of getting taken out if you're injured is, it's to such a lower extent to than, other professional militaries. But the Yukis, they've pretty much always come in clutch when it comes to us. They care about us and they want to help us survive. And we've been blessed with these bloody warriors over here who have put their lives on the line just to help, like, their mates and our mates get out of the danger zone so we can, live.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, what it comes down to is just those people on the ground, the medical staff actually coming in and, helping out is made the big difference.
Oh, mate, yeah, for sure. And I know this is an insensitive question, but I have to put my journalist hat on, not a mate hat. Have you lost any mates while being there?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have. I'm not going to say like who or at what time or where, but yeah, I have, and it sucks. It sucks. It really does, because you bond with these blokes, and you fucking want to see them all live, but it's just war, I suppose. Like it's just something you have to accept, and it won't ever get easier as it goes on. But you'll deal with it and deal with it differently each time.
Yeah. And what is it that you think, you probably see Twitter and Telegram and even my own stuff, what is it that you think that the media, being both official media and social media, get wrong? What do we keep getting wrong about this war?
Oh, geez, what would it be? I don't really even watch mainstream media, so I can't really speak too much on those vlogs and what they would bloody get wrong. I don't know, like the journalists on the ground, like yourself, you usually like you get it right. You have a realistic approach to it, and you try and get the most unbiased sort of for the people back home to sort of see the reality of it all. And I don't know, I haven't seen too much of like blokes like you. I don't even think I've seen him really get it wrong. If I have, honestly, I'm sorry, it doesn't come to nothing's popping in the head, but yeah, I don't really think I really even answered that. Sorry.
No, mate, I sort of put you on the spot. With that one, I apologise. It was just,
No,
because some people like, oh, the media always get the savagery of the Russians, or that people don't understand that it's the artillery, not the gunfighting, or or we're not having this win here, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose one thing that's, I guess, in the mainstream media is big is, I guess, all the brutality of like one side, because you hear people love to focus on the bad, not the good. But like, at least in my experience, I haven't seen these things and these monstrosities that the media has published and reported on. But at the same time, my experiences are anecdotal, so what I've experienced is going to be completely different to blokes to another battalion or another AO. So it's just really, I can only really talk about what I've experienced and what some close mates have, I suppose.
No, mate, I really appreciate all your honesty and talking to me. Is there anything you think that we should have talked about that we haven't in this?
I guess a lot of, I know, I just like to put forward the bloody Anzac spirit that the Aussies bring over here with them when they come over to this bloody country. I know the other Aussies here that I've fought with are bloody, the same kind of dudes that I've been with back home. Like they're fucking bloody units, mate. I love them all, and especially my other foreigner brothers here as well. We all, it's interesting to mix with people from different militaries and different backgrounds and cultures, and just do the same fight. It's just like a lot of every other military, you get through some all types of backgrounds, and you're just in it to win it, really, and just hit them hard. That's just that's what it's all about for me.
Mate, I'm glad to see that Anzac spirit in the Aussies is still alive.
Always, mate. It can never die. That flame will never extinguish.
Mate, the Aussies love a fucking scrap. It's been everywhere. No, I think I saw that you have a famous Ned Kelly quote on your signal as well.
Yeah, such is life, mate.
Yeah, I've got a Ned Kelly tattoo, mate.
Oh, beautiful.
For those who don't know,
will come for the sooner or later.
Yeah,
hey?
I was going to say, for those who don't know, Ned Kelly was what the Australians call a bushranger, which is, I don't even know the best way to put it, almost like a Robin Hood. Had a big shootout with the police against corruption and all this shit, wearing a suit of armour back in the 1800s. And his last words before they hanged him, was such as life.
Yeah, words to live by, I suppose.
Fucking oath, mate. Well, look, fucking, what did I call you at the start? Dave?
Yeah, mate.
I was trying to come up with it then. Mate, look, I really appreciate your time reaching out to me. And from a personal note, mate, I really appreciate your support of me well before this war when I was going through my own little war of the fucking tumour in my head.
Yeah. Mate, it's one you're going to win, I'm sure about it. How's that all going, by the way?
I don't actually know because I have so many months between scans. I'm a lot further away from chemotherapy than they thought. Like, I'm 4 or 5 years off chemo now, and they're like, holy shit, we haven't seen anything. That's like amazing news. Seems I was given 5 to 7 years in 2018. Well, if one doctor said that, and most doctors won't give a range, but he did. So, I'm up at the upper of that, and there's only been some slight growth. So it's nerve-wracking every time I go for the scan, because at some point the scan's going to be like, yeah, mate, you're fucked, and there's fuck all they can do. But, mate, it's the Aussie boys, mate. It's, the best thing for me, and you've probably heard this before, but I was diagnosed on my 22nd birthday, and the 7RAR lads who were holding a surprise party for me changed it from happy birthday to Willie's death party. And I had dried tears on my face. I came from the oncology clinic, from the diagnosis, to walk into a surprise party for Willie's death party. And it was like ripping off a Band-Aid, bro. I don't suggest you do this for any of your mates who got diagnosed with any tumours or anything. But for me, man, and that Aussie sort of grunt fucking attitude, it was like, the boys don't give a fuck. Like, the boys are like, we don't care if you're Tumour Willie, Corporal Willie, we don't give a shit. You're just Willie, one of the boys. And that did so much for me, man.
Yeah, dude, it's that morbid humour that honestly saves you. It works just as well here too. It's just, we always joke about dying, losing a leg or something like that. It's just, you just have a laugh about it, because we all know it's the reality. It fucking saves you. It keeps you. It honestly improves your mental state. Just having a laugh about fucking everything. Yeah.
Oh, mate, it's the best thing you can do. And whether it's the boys in the trenches there speaking Ukrainian or Russian, or the boys back in the world wars, it would have been the exact same.
Oh, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Well, mate, look after yourself. It'd be great to catch up and do another chat further down the line. It'd be it'd be sick.
Bloody oath, I'm always keen, as long as I make it that far. Eh?
Hey, I'm sure one of us will fucking make it. You still could outlive me. No, mate, keep looking after yourself,
you,
mate. No, fucking
glad
you
you're
too.
well, dude.
No, bro, fuck you too. And if any of your lads want to have a chat, or you anytime, like it's open, mate. It's open door policy on come and have a yarn. You can say and do whatever you want. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, bloody oath, man. Well, keep in touch for sure, dude.
Easy, dude. Righto, I'll message you after this.
All right, no dramas, mate. I'll catch you around.
Okay, thanks, brother. Bye bye.
See ya.